So here I have a broken screen on an HP-15-BS series laptop. This specific one comes from Walmart, but yeah, this one shouldn't be too hard to replace. Some laptops have little rubber nubs in the top and the bottom that you have to remove with a screwdriver to be able to get the front bezel off, but this one doesn't, so this one should be pretty easy. But the first thing you need to do is turn off the machine, and if you can't see it at all, best thing to do is just press and hold the power button. But this one, if I tilt the screen ever so slightly, I can actually still see enough to come down here and actually properly shut down the machine. So we'll wait for the light to go off here so that I know it's actually shut down. Give it a sec. There it goes. So first thing we need to do to replace the screen is remove this bezel. And the best tool to get underneath of there will be actually a something like a guitar pick of sorts. And you just want to gently get underneath of it and pry it up, and you'll hear it pop. Now you don't want to be too violent with this or too strong, because if you're too strong you could risk breaking the plastic clips that hold this on, and if you break the plastic clips then you aren't going to be able to hold the screen bezel on anymore, and that's not good. So start with the top, work your way down. If you don't have a guitar pick, a credit card would probably work as well. So work my way down that side, work my way down this side, and then I'll tilt this back as far back as I can get it, and I will work on the bottom here. There we go. Just run this ever so gently. It feels like there might be a small amount of adhesive on this bottom, so just just run the pick or your credit card along there, and that should get rid of most of the adhesive. Just gently pulling up as you go. And alrighty. And with the last bit of that, there we go. And so you might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it off of the hinges, like where the hinges are underneath. But otherwise, the plastic bezel comes right off. We can set that to the side. So now looking at this screen, it looks like it is held in with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. So let's see what size of screws those are. I'm going to guess they are a 0. Nope, not quite right. Let's try for a Phillips 1. That's a little bit better fit down there. What about down here? Yep. So Phillips size 1. Put that in the screwdriver here, and we will just unscrew these screws. The 2 larger head black ones on the bottom, and then 2 on each side, smaller silver ones. Alright. With those 4 out, this should, I was going to say, I see this, the hinge here is popping out a bit already, so that's a good sign. Interesting. Looks like this may be actually slightly more complex than usual. I'm going to say it looks like we actually need to take off Looks like we actually need to take off 4 more silver screws that are down here that were by the black ones. Looks like that's all part of the hinge mechanism. So I will go ahead and take those out. So I guess the lesson here is just to remove everything. So I've not seen one quite like this before. Usually once you take out the main screws on the corners, it usually comes right off. So HP was a little difficult with this one. It's alright, no matter. Still nice and easy. Alright, with those off, this back panel should be able to come off. Or so one would think. I'm not entirely sure what's holding it on right now. But it looks like the screen itself is loose. So let's take our credit card or guitar pick. Let's come up here underneath the screen and just, gently lift it. And with the screen gently lifted, we did need to take those off. Interesting. With the screen gently lifted, I'm going to say we will move these just around. Be gentle with them. Looks like they do bend pretty easy. But the screen lifts right up, and then I can lay that down. So with the screen laid down, there's a connector back here, and it is held on with some what almost looks like industrial Scotch tape. It's very thick and very sticky, so I usually use my pick and try to just work a corner up enough to be able to grab it and pull very, very slowly, because you don't want to tear. This black material here is just like thin insulating plastic. You don't want to tear that because you want to be able to get this tape off as clean as possible. So I just pull very, very slowly. And then once the tape is up, then this connector should just pull out of the screen right like that. And the screen is free. So now we have our replacement screen, still with the protective cover on it, and I'm going to leave that on. So I'm going to position the screen in the same position as the old one, and then I got to get this connector lined up, and so I may have to wiggle the screen around, and that's why I left the protector on it, so is that if it scratches the protector, it doesn't scratch the screen. But should be able to get this connector lined up. And this is probably the hardest part of this whole process, is getting this connector lined up and in, because it's very thin and has to be very, very precise. But we've got it, and there it's snapped in. Snapped on that side, snapped in on that side. Nice and tight, and then we're going to press down that tape. Not too hard because you don't want to break the new screen, but you want it to definitely stick. And just as a backup measure, in case you're not super confident about that tape sticking, we'll go ahead and use some extra tape here, some Scotch tape, and we will tape over the tape so that we can make sure that it sticks and this cord doesn't pull out. So now we'll carefully flip the screen back up, and we'll line up the screw holes at the bottom here and at the bottom here. And then we'll tilt it back and move these metal brackets back in front of the metal brackets at the top here. And this on the top has a little plastic nub that it sits in. It looks like there's little plastic nubs at the bottom too, so you can sort of guide your holes by the plastic nubs to get it in, but that looks like it is pretty well in. So looks like I have slightly bent these metal the metal hinge frames, but that's okay because screws will hold those in. So now we will just put the screws back in. So I'm going to tap the screen in first so it doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going to put one screw in there, one screw in there, this one up here, actually to hold it in, will go through the metal hinge and the screen to hold it onto the back. Oops. Screw fell off the screwdriver here. But here we go. And same thing on the other side. Say line up that hinge and alright, so now we've got the screen screwed in. So now I'm going to put the rest of these screws in here as they should be. Because with the screen in place it shouldn't move. Screw down here on this bottom. I don't know if you know, yeah, I was going to say, I know my hand's sort of covering this. This is a little bit of a weird angle, but I was going to say, basically I put in this screw, this screw, this screw, and this screw first, and now I'm putting in the outer edge, but not the big, well, inner edge here, I guess. Inner and outer here. And then the outer edge screws on the top are the ones I'm doing next. And I'll do the big fat black ones that go down here last. But almost done with these screws. Almost done. Almost. Alright, last two screws. The big-headed black ones. You don't want to tighten these too tight because you risk stripping the screws or breaking the back plastic, breaking the what they screw into out of the back plastic. And back plastic pieces on laptops are quite expensive to replace. I have had to do that before. So, alright, well, with the screen plugged in and screwed in place, the only thing left is to put the front bezel back on. However, I like to test it at this point to make sure that it will turn on. So, I'm going to go ahead and hit the power button, and it's going to say we have a backlight and we have a logo. I'm going to say that's a good sign. So, wait for Windows to load up here, and voila! It's going to say it works. So, I am going to go ahead and shut this down again. And basically, to put this back on, you just line it back up and just start snapping. So you'll press along the edges. And I usually will do the sides first. But when I get to this point, I haven't peeled the screen protector off, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the tab for the screen protector and pull it to the other side of the bezel, just so that I have access to it. So, but I'm going to snap this on. That one was being difficult. And then I will snap across the top usually. Alright, that looks good. I'm going to say all the edges. There we go, and there's that corner. That corner, so all the edges and top are good. So now I usually shut the laptop and press along the back to get the last bit snapped in. Now this can be the most difficult part because it's the hardest to get to because it's right where you can't reach really. But usually I've found most of the time that shutting the laptop and giving it a nice gentle push right along the edge will pretty much snap it in place. So that looks like it is pretty well snapped. Yep, I was going to say right around the hinges, maybe not. So then I'll come back and I'm applying pressure on the back side with this hand along the bottom. But I was going to say it got pretty good. Now this did have some adhesive, and if it's sticky enough, it'll still stick. So applying pressure from the back, I'm just going to rub along this so as that adhesive can sort of re-stick on the bottom there. So now the last thing to do is to just, oops, gotta leave the most satisfying part for last. But with that, the screen has been changed, the laptop has been reassembled, and it is ready to go back to the customer.